Hey everybody, welcome back to That Yoga Family. In this video, we are going to dive deep into the profound wisdom contained in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, Book 2, and its remarkable parallels with yogic science and philosophy. In our previous video, we read Book 1 of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations and discovered that he shared several philosophical ideas with yoga, including self-awareness, mindfulness, mental discipline, detachment from materialism, and the recognition of the interconnectedness of life. Both philosophies seek to guide us towards inner peace and wisdom through self-examination and ethical living. Today, we continue the journey as we uncover the hidden connections between these ancient teachings and the modern practices of yoga and meditation. We'll explore how the Stoic principles and Yogic principles align, providing a framework for cultivating inner peace, mindfulness, and personal growth. All right, let's jump right into Book 2. Book 2. Remember to put yourself in mind every morning before night. It will be your luck to meet with some busybody, some ungrateful, abusive fellow, with some knavish, envious, or unsociable churl or other. Now all this perverseness in them proceeds from their ignorance of good and evil, and since it has fallen to my share to understand the natural beauty of a good action and the deformity of an ill one, since I am satisfied the person disobliging is of kin to me, and though we are not just of the same flesh and blood, yet our minds are nearly related, being both extracted from the deity. I am likewise convinced that no man can do me real injury, because no man can force me to misbehave myself. Nor can I find it in my heart to hate or to be angry with one of my own nature and family. For we are all made for mutual assistance, as of the feet, the hands, and the eyelids, as the rows of the upper and under teeth, from whence it follows that clashing and opposition is perfectly unnatural. Now such unfriendly disposition is implied in resentment and aversion. This being of mine, all there is of it, consists of flesh, breath, and the ruling part. Away from the books, then. Suffer not your mind any more to be distracted. It is not permitted. As for your body, value it no more than if you were just expiring. For what is it? Nothing but a little blood and bones, a piece of network, wrought out of nerves, veins, and arteries twisted together. In the next place, consider what sort of thing your breath is. Why, only a little air, and that not constant, but every moment let out your lungs and sucked in again. The third part of your composition is the ruling part. Now consider this. You are an old man. Do not suffer this noble part of you under servitude any longer. Let it not be moved by the springs of selfish passions. Let it not quarrel with fate, be uneasy at the present or afraid of the future. Providence shines clearly through the works of the gods. Even the works of chance are not without dependence on nature, being only an effect of that chain of causes which are under providential regulation. Indeed, all things flow from this fountain. Besides, there is necessity and the interest of the whole universe of which you are a part. Now that which is both the product and support of universal nature must by consequence be serviceable to every part of it. But the world subsists upon change and is preserved by the mutation of the simple elements and also of things mixed and compounded. And what it loses one way, it gets another. Let these reflections satisfy you, and make them your rule to live by. As for books, cast away your thirst after them, that you may not die complaining, but go off in good humor and heartily thank the gods for what you have had. Remember how often you have postponed minding your interest, and let slip those opportunities the gods have given you. It is now high time to consider what sort of world you are a part of, and from what kind of governor of it you are descended. that you have set a period assigned you to act in, and unless you approve it and brighten and compose your thoughts, it will quickly run off with you and be lost beyond recovery. Take care always to remember that you are a man and a Roman, and let every action be done with perfect and unaffected gravity, humanity, freedom, and justice. And be sure you entertain no fancies which may give you check to these qualities. This is possible, if you will but perform every action as though it were your last. If your appetites and passions do not cross upon your reason, if you keep clear of rashness and have nothing of insincerity and self-love to infect you, and do not complain of your destiny. You see what a few points a man has to gain in order to attain to a godlike way of living, for he that comes thus far performs all which the immortal powers will require of him. Continue to dishonor yourself, my soul. Neither will you have much time left to do yourself honor. For the life of each man is almost up already, and yet, instead of paying a due regard to yourself, you place your happiness in the souls of other men. Do not let accidents disturb or outward objects engross your thoughts, but keep your mind quiet and disengaged, that you may be at leisure to learn something good and cease rambling from one thing to another. There is likewise another sort of roving to be avoided, for some people are busy and yet do nothing. They fatigue and wear themselves out, and yet at no goal or no purpose any general end of action or design. A man can rarely be unhappy by being ignorant of another's thoughts, but he does not attend to the motions of his own certainly unhappy. These reflections ought always to be at hand, to consider well the nature of the universe and my own nature, together with the relation betwixt them, and what kind of part is it of what kind of whole, and that no mortal can hinder me from acting and speaking comfortably to the being of which I am a part. Theophrastus, in comparing the degrees of faults, as men would commonly distinguish them, talks like a philosopher when he affirms that those instances of misbehavior which proceed from desire are greater than those of which anger is the occasion. For a man that is angry seems to quit his hold of reason unwillingly and with pain, and start out of rule before he is aware. But he that runs riot out of desire, being overcome by pleasure, loses all hold on himself and all manly restraint. Well, then, like a philosopher, he said that he of the two is the more to be condemned that sins with pleasure than he that sins with grief. For the first looks like an injured person, and is vexed, and as it were forced into a passion, whereas the other begins with inclination, and commits the fault through desire. Manage all your actions, words, and thoughts accordingly, since you may at any moment quit life. And what greater matter is the business of dying? If the gods are in being, you can suffer nothing, for they will do you no harm. And if they are not, or take no care of us mortals, why, then, a world without either gods or providence is not worth a man's while to live in. But in truth, the being of the gods and their concern in human affairs is beyond dispute, and they have put it entirely in a man's power not to fall into any calamity properly so called. And if other misfortunes had been really evils, they would have provided against them too, and furnished man with the capacity to avoid them. But how can that which cannot make the man worse make his life so? I can never be persuaded that the universal nature neglected these matters, through want of knowledge, or having that, yet lacked the power to correct the error, or that nature should commit such a fault, through want of power or skill, as to suffer things really good and evil to happen promiscuously to good and bad men, now living and dying, honor and infamy, pleasure and pain, riches, and poverty, all these things are the common allotment of the virtuous and the vicious, because they have nothing intrinsically noble or base in their nature, and therefore, to speak properly, are neither good nor bad. Consider how quickly all things are dissolved and resolved, the bodies and substances themselves into matter and substance of the world, and their memories into its general age and time. Consider too the objects of sense, particularly those that charm us with pleasure, frighten us with pain, or are most admired for empty reputation. The power of thought will show a man how insignificant, despicable, and paltry these things are, and how soon they wither and die. It will show him what those people are upon whose fancy and good word the being of fame depends. Also the nature of death, which, if once abstracted from the pomp and terror of the idea, will be found nothing more than a pure and natural action. Now he that dreads the course of nature is a very child, but this is not only a work of nature, but is also profitable to her. Lastly, we should consider how we are related to the deity, and in what part of our being, and in what condition of that part. Nothing can be more unhappy than the curiosity of a man that ranges everywhere and digs into the earth, as the poet says, for discovery, that is wonderfully busy to force by conjecture a passage into other people's thoughts, but does not consider that it is sufficient to reverence and serve the divinity within himself. And this service consists in this, that a man keep himself pure from all violent passion and evil affection, from all rashness and vanity, and from all manner of discontent towards gods or men. For as for the gods, their administration ought to be revered upon the score of excellency. And as for men, their actions should be well taken for the sake of common kindred. Besides, they are often to be pitied for their ignorance of good and evil, which incapacity of discerning between moral qualities is no less a defect than that of a blind man, who cannot distinguish between white or black. Though you were to live 3,000, or if you please 30,000 years, yet remember that no man can lose any other life than that which he now lives, neither is he possessed of any other that which he loses. Whence it follows that the longest life, as we commonly speak, and the shortest come all to the same reckoning, for the present is of the same duration everywhere. Everybody's loss, therefore, is of the same bigness, and reaches no further than to a point in time, for no man is capable of losing either the past or the future. For how can one be deprived of what he is not? So that under this consideration, there are two notions worth remembering. One is that nature treads in a circle and has much the same face through the whole course of eternity, and therefore it signifies not at all whether a man stands gazing here in 100 or 200 or an infinity of years. For all that he gets by, it is only to see the same sights so much. The Cheffner. The other hint is that when the longest and shortest lived persons come to die, their loss is equal. They can but lose the present as being the only thing they have, for that which he has not, no man can be truly said to lose. Monimus, the cynic philosopher, used to say that all things were but opinion. Now this is saying may undoubtedly prove serviceable, provided one accepts it only as far as it is true. There are several different ways by which a man's soul may do violence to itself. First of all, when it becomes an abscess, and as it were an excredence on the universe as far as it lies. For to be vexed at anything that happens is a separation of ourselves from nature, in some part of which natures of all other things are contained. Secondly, it falls under the same misfortune when it hates any person or goes against him with an intention of mischief, which is the case of the angry and revengeful. Thirdly, it wrongs itself when it is overcome by pleasure or pain. Fourthly, when it makes use of art, tricking, and falsehood in word or action. Fifthly, when it does not know what it would be at in a business, but runs on without thought or design, whereas even the least undertaking ought to be aimed at some end. Now the end of rational beings is to be governed by the law and reason of the most venerable city and constitution. The extent of human life is but a point. Its substance is in perpetual flux, its perceptions dim, and the whole composition of the body tending to corruption. The soul is but a whirl, fortune not to be guessed at, and fame undiscerning. In a word, that which belongs to the body is a flowing river, and what the soul has is but a dream and bubble. Life is but a campaign or course of travels, and after fame is oblivion. What is it, then, that will stick by a man? Why, nothing but philosophy. Now this consists in keeping the divinity within us from inquiry and disgrace, superior to pleasure and pain, doing nothing at random, without any disassembling and pretense, and independent of the motions of another. Further, philosophy brings the mind to take things as they fall, and acquiesce in their distribution, inasmuch as all events proceed from the same cause with itself, and above all, to have an easy prospect of death, as being nothing more than a dissolving of the elements of which each thing is composed. Now, if the elements themselves are never the worse for running off one into another, what if they should all change and be dissolved? Why should any man be concerned at the consequence? All this is but nature's method. Now, nature never does any mischief. Written at Carnuntum. Okay, so here's some of my thoughts after reading book 2. Marcus Aurelius discusses the importance of not letting external events dictate our emotions. He advises that we maintain an inner calm and rationality even in the face of adversity. He reminds us also that our perception shapes our reality, which echoes the yogic concept of Maya, where our illusory thoughts create the world we experience. He talks about the acceptance of impermanence and the transitory nature of life, urging us to accept change and impermanence as natural aspects of existence. And this is akin to the yogic teachings on impermanence, or anitya, which is the understanding that everything is in a constant state of flux. He also emphasizes continuous self-improvement, self-discipline, and virtue, encouraging us to focus on our character and moral development, which align with many yogic principles. The yamas and niyamas are all about that, specifically some like tapas and santosha, where we cultivate discipline, and this helps to spark the fire within us and allowing us to find contentment in the present moment. He gives some practical advice on dealing with challenges, like managing anger, being patient with others, and seeing others as a version of himself, and also practicing gratitude, which all resonate with yogic ideas, cultivating those positive qualities. And he also encourages us to embrace those challenges, understanding that growth and transformation arise from adversity, which also I found resonating with the yogic concept of sthira and sukha, which is finding a sense of ease or comfort within challenges or discomfort, which we practice during asana all the time. And that helps to expand our capacity to be resilient in the face of adversity. Marcus Aurelius reflects also on the importance of serving the common good. And as a Roman emperor, I would hope so. He was one of the great emperors of his time. And that also echoes the yogic principle of selfless service, or karma yoga. So these are some of the reflections that I have after reading book 2. It seems like he's really seeking to guide himself and reflecting on a life of developing inner harmony, a sense of resilience, and ethical living. And that all shares a lot of common ground with yogic science and philosophy. So I hope this book and exploration of book 2 of Meditations inspires you to embark on a journey of your own self-reflection and self-mastery. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell to stay updated with our future videos. And if you enjoyed this, like and share this video with other seekers of wisdom who will benefit from our exploration. Thanks again for joining us. Stay tuned as we will be looking at book 3 in the near future. Take care, guys. Namaste.